Hello, my lovely nerd empire. My name is Gryphonknight, and we are here with another reaction video. This time we are reacting to a video that's called Men Are Slowly Giving Up, and Nobody Cares. Well, with today's society and, the way things stand in the social network and reality, not very many people seem to really care what's going on with men or how they're doing or anything like that. But that's probably not, I'm not sure if it would be the majority or if it's just the very vocal minority. So let's see what this video has to say though.
Increasingly, more and more men are giving up. Giving up on relationships, careers, and society as a whole. Resentment is growing, unemployment is becoming rampant, and keeping your head above water seems almost impossible for many men today. This is leading to more men than ever dropping out of society and
Millions of men have dropped out of the workforce, leaving companies struggling to fill jobs. It's a matter of our national identity. I'm not really sure what to say about that. But I do hear that a lot of people are struggling to find jobs because there are a lot of companies that, even though they're truly not hiring, they're still putting out notices that they are hiring, and they're doing it for some sort of reason. I can't remember. I've been told what the reason is that these companies do that, but I can't remember what it is. But they put out these notices that they are hiring. They do take interviews and everything, but some jobs they interview people like 2, 3, 4, 5 times, basically wasting the person's time. And then when they do actually decide to go through with this person, they end up telling them that the job that they originally applied for has been filled, but they have a job like it, even though it's not really the same job and it's at significantly less pay. So it's a horrible thing that these jobs are doing. It's like, if you're not hiring, don't put out a notice that you're hiring. You're wasting your time, you're wasting the people's time, and it's just why. I don't understand why these companies do this. It's so freaking stupid.
entirely. And it's not just that, men are becoming infantilized. With terms like adulting now becoming normal, it's clear that something ugly is happening that needs to be addressed. We live in such a strained, unnatural environment that is bound to start to wear on society, but men in particular are battling to keep up and are slowly giving up. Giving up on dreams, giving up on trying, and giving up on doing anything constructive. And for a large part, it's really not their fault, as this trend isn't just a personal struggle.
Hang on. What the fuck does that thing say? Is your husband a man-child? Do you mummy him? 2 experts reveal the telltale signs you're a parent to your partner, and how to stop. What the fuck?
It's a personal struggle, but a societal issue that we...
Why men still get more promotions than women? Women are better employees than men. Women work harder and more than men. Study. I'd say probably a lot of these are cherry picked. On average, men do get more promotions than women because on average, men sort of go after it more fervently than women do. But, there are some women who aggressively do go after promotions and they do end up getting it, but it's more often men do that than women do. At least as far as I'm aware. As far as saying women are better employees than men, I would say that depends on probably what the job is. When it comes in relation to people, women are probably, I would say, better than men. when it comes to relation of things, men are probably better than women, because that's just that tends to be the choices a lot of these people go for in finding a job. Women tend to gravitate to jobs that deal with people, and men tend to gravitate to jobs that deal with things. That's just how we're wired.
Must urgently address.
Women more effective than men in all leadership measures. That is highly doubtful. I'm not saying women are not effective. Women can be very effective in leadership measures, but saying that they're better than men in all leadership measures, highly arrogant and highly, highly unbelievable. Women work harder and more intensively than men. Again, I'd say that depends on what the job is. Women are more productive than men according to new research, again, depending on what the job is. I don't think women are better than men in all aspects of jobs and life. But it depends on, like I said, the job, and it also depends on the individual.
So why is this happening? And why has it gotten so bad in 2024? On the surface, it's a long and complicated story. Life has never been simple for any human, and objectively speaking, for men in the West,
life is actually better than it has ever been for humans. We're just too swayed by pessimism that we don't know it. Whether or not the world is getting worse, the nature of news interacts with the nature of cognition to make us think it is. The solution, enough honesty to admit now is a great time to be alive. I would say in any sort of era, yes, life is better for humanity as a whole than it has ever been in any point in time in human history. But I'm not really sure what to say. But overall, life, I would say, is better now than it has ever been for humans. But for people individually, that depends on person to person and the choices people have made.
today, it's never been better. We have all the technology we need, food delivered to your door with the tap of a finger, dating readily available to anyone with a simple...
Okay, I think social media and all these dating apps have made dating and finding somebody more worse than it has been better. But that's just my opinion. I mean, yes, people are able to connect and probably date others outside of their own township or state, but it has also made it a lot worse. People are just, I don't know, people are just more horrible than ever.
Swipe. Any products, items, or experiences that you want can be had with the tap of your phone. But over time, all of these comforts of life destroys the importance and necessity of struggle. Without any value placed on higher
Men
goals,
don't care about higher
there just
goals
is
anymore.
no reason to care, means that
Men don't care about higher goals anymore. I'd say men do care about higher goals. It's just with how the economy is and how everything is and how a lot of things are going against men. It's just they don't see the point in going for them, and they don't really have the motivation to attain them. Because with so many things working against them and nobody really caring, they feel like, what's the point? Why go after these things when I gain nothing out of it? Both emotionally, physically, and monetarily. So like, what's the point? So men don't really have the motivation anymore to go to these things. Unlike back in the day where there was so much motivation and a point to actually attain these things.
there's no reason for people to properly live or have the will to achieve greatness, which is probably why 40% of young men aged 18 to 45 meet the criteria for depression, and 49% of 18 to 23-year-olds have had a thought of passing themselves in the past 2 weeks alone. And we're seeing the symptoms of this problem everywhere. The sapping away of our vision and ambition permeates in all aspects of modern society today.
Without any fear for the future, boys have given up their ambition. Well, monetarily, yeah, there's really no future for my generation, Gen Z, Gen Alpha. There's not really any point because things are getting so far out of reach monetarily that there's no point in going after these things. I mean, look at the average median income for the United States. It's $35,000 to $45,000. That is the average median income of the average person in the United States. As far as I'm aware, I think it's 35 to 45,000. The average cost of a house in America is around $300,000 to $400,000. Now, back in the day, I think it was like the 70s or 80s, the average median income was like $19,000 to $25,000, I think, and the average cost of a house was like $35,000 to $45,000. So people were actually able to afford to get a house. They were able to afford a down payment on the house and make payments on it. They were able to get a house, go to college, have a job, and actually have a comfortable life. Nowadays, those monetary values are so skewed and out of fucking whack that people can't afford this stuff. You know, people can barely afford to put food on their own table. Like back then, you only had to have one, maybe two people at most, like one working a full-time job and one could work a part-time, and they were able to afford a house, be it a 2, 3, 4-story house. Nowadays, the entire family and then some has to work in order to afford a single floor home. There are houses out there that look like rundown pieces of shit that are going for $50,000 to $100,000 that look like they shouldn't even be worth $20,000. So, and like 3, 4, 5 people have to work just to afford a singular home. Things are so out of whack. People fear that they'll have to live with their parents until they're 40, 50 years old. And even then, they'll probably not be able to afford a house. I'm almost living paycheck to paycheck, and I live in a 1-bedroom apartment. So, yeah, things are just horribly out of whack.
Culture, architecture, relationships, bodies, and minds. Past civilizations before us have always placed their emphasis on beauty, wisdom, and logic for all the population to see, with great town squares, bustling with art, life, and community. These things were placed above all else as the bedrock of their societies, laying out a code of honor and struggle in its people to achieve greatness. Comforts were shown in art and culture, but as an aspiration for achieving something great, for following your mastery. But today our cities are mostly devoid of all of this character, and instead they're marked out by the most cost-efficient, bland, and sterile designs to facilitate a simpler, self-motivated purpose. It's why people flock all over the world to a handful of remaining cities that retain their centuries-old charm to feel and experience the character of bygone societies that were motivated by higher ideals. Ideals greater than our modern two-dimensional ways of thinking. With a prioritization of comfort, lust and opulence, and flashy materialism over individual excellence and greater community, we're now reeling in the aftermath, becoming instead a generation of mandated mediocrity. And does this explain why men today seem to struggle more than ever while seemingly having more than ever? America in particular is not actually in a recession.
There have been sometimes, there's a saying like the more you have, like the more you take, the less you have. So it's, people, a lot of people like have so much stuff, they feel like they don't really have anything. It's, yeah, we're living in a time of mediocrity. People don't strive to be more. We don't strive to do more, to have more, to create more, to make things better. It's just, it seems like we're stuck in a rut.
In fact, on paper, the economy looks like the best it's been in a while. Unemployment has dropped, GDP is up, but what the people are actually experiencing is a completely different story. We can see this in a study by the University of Michigan on consumer sentiments, which gathers data based on how consumers feel about the current state of finances. In 2022, it dropped to an all-time low. Prices of our average daily needs like gas and food have increased in unbearable percentages. In contrast, salary increases do not match, putting a high strain on budgets.
Inflation is showing no signs of slowing down as Americans pay over $1,000 a month more on the same essentials we were buying 3 years ago. Nothing's changed but price. The latest consumer price index for March showing basic necessities like
It really is amazing how all these things keep increasing in price, even though nothing has changed. Like the labor hasn't changed, the items themselves hasn't changed. None of this stuff has really changed, yet they increase the price of all these things. It's like I would understand if the labor has increased, the items have gotten better, and it costs more to make them because they've improved or whatever, and all these sort of different things, but nothing has really changed or anything, and yet these prices keep increasing, and the pay of everybody and everybody's pay just stays the same and doesn't increase with it. It's like these people don't understand the reason why the economy is pretty shit is because people can't really spend their money. Money isn't flowing. If you want the economy to do better, money has to keep flowing and flowing, but people aren't making enough to spend it. The people are making so little that they're trying to hoard what they have just so they can survive and pay for what they need the next time around. Now, if the pay and the price were the same, or if they kept increasing at the same rate and were around the same, people would have more incentive to spend more money, and the economy, I think, would be doing better because money would just, keep flowing, and people wouldn't want to hoard their money because they think they won't be able to afford their next meal. People aren't really spending money, and yet prices everywhere are increasing. Gas, food, necessities, labor, housing, cars, all this sort of stuff has increased, and yet our pay has not moved even 1%. So people are becoming homeless, people are rationing out their food to the point where they're becoming malnourished. People are moving back with their parents. Hell, there's even places where it's illegal to have roommates. What fucking sense does that make? Everywhere is becoming way too fucking greedy for their own good. If they keep the shit up like this, somewhere along the line, things are just gonna crash, and it's gonna be like, an apocalypse, a financial apocalypse.
Like our food, housing, and gas are all continuing to cripple Americans' wallets with higher prices.
Our wages are actually down against inflation since Biden took office. So not only are...
Here's another reason I know that it's becoming shit. I went to the grocery store recently. I got 3 bags of stuff, like food and other essentials that I need for the stuff for the shower, the bathroom, food so I can have something to eat for the next few days, and stuff like that. 3 bags of stuff. Normally should be, I don't know, maybe 50 or so, 50 to 75 bucks. It cost me nearly $150 for 3 bags of items. I don't understand how that should be allowed. That's just way too fucking greedy. And yet our country doesn't seem to fucking care one bit, because they'd rather line their own pockets than enrich their citizens, which in turn would enrich them. The more they try and only enrich themselves, the more damage they're going to do to people, the country, and themselves. But they don't seem to see this.
Prices soaring, but our wages, at least if you measure hourly wages, are not keeping up at all.
Keeping your head above water has become the new normal instead of owning a home with a white picket fence. The rich are becoming richer and the poor are becoming poorer, with the middle class disintegrating completely. All the knowledge of the past of just going to college, getting a job, and buying a home immediately is just completely irrelevant for anyone working and living in 2024. The universities have skyrocketed in prices to absurd levels. The housing market is in a complete giant bubble. Everyone's sending out job applications more and more, all while using these automated testing systems, applying up to 100 jobs a day and still not getting anywhere.
Yeah, a lot of these jobs are using AIs to filter through their job applications, and they're just denying application after application after application because of these AI systems instead of having actual people look at them. And they're possibly filtering out people that could have been wonderful for their company, all because they'd rather use an AI and instead of having actual people look at the thing, which I think is fucking stupid. Look, as much as AI makes a lot of things easier, it is not the best way to go. Sometimes you need actual people rather than an AI to do the job.
All the while major companies repeatedly tell us that they can't find any workers for their companies. And the results of this are clear. People are drifting towards more unfulfilling jobs, or just not even having a job at all, while the rich buy up resources, real estate, and everything that used to be the cornerstones of the middle class that is now just an investment hidden.
Yeah, there's another reason why housing has becoming so freaking expensive is because these large companies keep buying up all these houses and then renting them back out to people at exorbitant prices. They're taking away possible homes that a lot of these people would have been able to afford to get and been able to afford to have and keep in their family for generations. And yet you see all these companies just buy these swaths of homes. I don't think it should be legal for all these giant companies to buy up all these homes and then rent them out just so they can make a fucking profit. That is one of the that's another reason why a lot of people can't afford to spend money all willy-nilly, is because they're too busy putting money towards property tax, their mortgage, their food, all this, and any sort of other bills they have to pay towards the home. And then they barely have enough money to put food on the table for them, let alone their own family. These companies should not be allowed to buy up any homes at all. It should be illegal for them to do that because, like I said, they're taking away the ability for the American family to buy their own house and possibly finally pay it off and only have to pay property tax and have their own home for their family and possibly, give their home to their children down the line. It's a horrible thing that these companies are doing, and yet we're letting them do it.
Through an offshore bank account for some giant investment fund.
Basically, what they want to do is create a nation of renters. BlackRock coming in and giving them more money than the house.
Yeah, BlackRock.
How much more do they give them?
They can give them, 30% above.
Really?
Which is money.
And then they just lease those homes out.
And they lease them out. It's part of this idea that home ownership and automobile ownership and all of these things, these legacy systems that people want to get rid of. And they go, rent a house, use Uber, Lyft, whatever. You don't need to own. What does owning do for you? That's that famous article, you'll own nothing and be happy.
Right.
And because of this, all saving plans for...
I'd rather own a home because that's like, it gives people a sense of security. They have a home that they don't really need to pay anything on anymore, aside from property tax and, electricity, water, heating. That's about it. All they'll really have to pay. And then every once in a while pay to have something fixed. But they don't have to pay this giant bill to mortgage or anything on their home. They have a home. They own a home. People want to own a home. It's a sense of security for people, and yet they can't do that because, like the guy said, they want to create a nation of renters instead of a nation of owners. It's these big-ass companies like BlackRock just buy up these giant swaths of homes so nobody can actually own one, and they can only rent them. Like I said, companies, it should be illegal for companies to do that.
Regular people are halted because living paycheck to paycheck means there just isn't enough for a savings plan. And whilst there is still some hope to dig your way out, for most this does begin a damaged path. People end up working in a job that's not in their field, something that they hate to do every day, and eliminates the experience they need for the job in their field. And so even the experience they are getting is just completely useless for getting back on track. In effect, their now entry-level position is further deviating them from becoming lawyers, psychologists, or whichever career path they studied for. And if the middle class is experiencing this, then the lower earners are feeling this even more. The jobs they once had a chance of landing now go to the middle class, while they get hit.
Lower class jobs now taken by the middle class, pushing workers even further down the economic ladder. Yeah, there are a lot of jobs, like when they say entry-level jobs, that should be a job that requires no experience. It is an entry-level job. A job, like I said, that's not supposed to require any experience at all. You're supposed to be able to get into it, get trained in it, get experience through that way, and then be able to move up or find another job that's in the same field, and now you have experience to do so you can get that job. That's what an entry-level job is supposed to be, and yet there are entry-level jobs that seem to require 1, 2, 3, 5 years or more of experience. At that point, it is not an entry-level job. It's just a regular job that requires experience. So it's just like, why are these companies allowed to do this? There should be a penalty for these companies who are doing this to the middle and lower class, because now they're pushing them out of jobs that they can't do because they don't have the experience to do them. But in order to get experience, they need to do them. It makes no logical sense.
To bump lower, which is putting millions of people in dire straits. They face working twice as hard for minimum wage, juggling between jobs. But
those earning a minimum wage are working hard, performing actual labor, while the wealthiest among us aren't even working for most of their income. Their money does the heavy lifting, and don't forget that this sort of income is taxed at a favorable rate and as compared to earned income. Look, here's the thing I understand. I know the president of the CEO of said companies. I know that they started from the bottom and worked their way up to where their company is at now. And I know that they take a lot of risk doing what they do. I understand that. I get it. It's what they've done is hard work, and they've worked at it for a long time. But the thing is, these people find it very, very unfair that they get these sort of money packages, or whatever you want to call them, these incentives or whatever. They get all this money because the job has made net positive. Like, oh, for this year we've made this amount of money, and instead of taking the amount of money they've earned, instead of putting it back into the company to possibly update the hardware, the software, the tools, or possibly give raises to their own people, they take that money and give it to themselves. Now, how is that? I don't get that. The money you earn is supposed to go back into the company. It's not supposed to go right to yourself. At that point, that's just, I would think that would be just called theft. But what do I know? I'm just an average dude.
Taking in the gig economy with absolutely no security, all with an extreme pressure to keep up with daily expenses in a completely overpriced megacity. And the truth is, both middle and lower earners are now taking a huge hit to their egos. They feel disrespected through no fault of their own, as no man wants to feel like a failure. They don't want to feel like they're not providing or on their destiny. Imagine putting in the hours and effort to get a degree and then having to take a job that's not even within the field you studied for. Well, this is just regular life for most people nowadays. It's making men feel incredibly depressed and isolated.
Male depression.
They watch all the stuff on social media, they see people flexing the Rolexes on their Instagram stories. Meanwhile, they're struggling to survive, living a life they absolutely hate. And when friends and family ask about it, they suffer the humiliation of explaining why they had to take what was available. Even though it isn't humiliating at all, and they're doing what they can to survive, it definitely takes a huge effect on their mental health. Especially as it wasn't that long ago, where it was actually normal to enter the workforce with a mentor who would show you the ropes and encourage you and push you to learn more. Starting at the bottom didn't seem so bad because...
See, now that is called being a leader. There is a difference between a boss and a leader. A boss only sees you as a number, hires you, and then tells you to do this job and that job and whatever else, even outside of what they hired you for, and they do nothing to help you. They only see you as a number or something like that. That is a boss. That is somebody who you should never work for. Now, a leader, who, yes, essentially is also your boss, but they are a leader. They help you through the job. They let you know what you should be doing. They make sure to train you so you do it right and you don't hurt yourself. They don't just see you as a number. They make sure that you succeed. They want to see you succeed, do better, and possibly move up the ladder. They give you advice. They do all this sort of stuff to make sure you succeed at the job. That is what a leader does. That is the type of people you should work for and should be working with. That is how companies succeed, is when you have leaders and not bosses.
Because there was an opportunity to grow and reap more rewards. But this imperative step is slowly slipping away. Companies of prestige have forgotten the generation with no experience. And for many companies, this...
Why inexperienced workers can't get entry-level jobs? Because you shouldn't be needing experience for entry-level jobs. That is the point, like I said before, of an entry-level job, is for people who do not have experience that need to gain experience in order to get higher-level jobs. That is what entry-level means. No experience, get hired to that entry level to gain experience, get mentored, to get tutored or whatever in that job, so you can either move up the ladder or move on to another job that's probably in the same field of the experience you just gained, so you can get that job. People seem to have forgotten, especially companies seem to have forgotten what a fucking entry-level job is, and it frustrates me to no end, because I've seen so many entry-level job postings that require anywhere from 1 to 3 years of experience. At that point, it is no longer an entry-level job, and it shouldn't be called an entry-level job. It should just be called a regular job.
This is what they want. This is actually the ideal scenario, where they have people so desperate, so in need of
Reserve Army of Labor. Reserve Army of Labor is a Marxist term used to describe the ranks of the unemployed who, through the absence of any meaningful choice, are prepared to work for very low wages in temporary jobs. The existence of a reserve army of labor serves the interests of the, I don't know how to pronounce that word, and exploits member of the proletariat. I think I pronounced that right. Yeah. This is just, it's really sad.
Experience that they can treat their workers like absolute trash. Since the 1980s,
men's testosterone levels declines in the last 20 years. It seems to have, yeah.
Levels have dropped more than 50%, and yet we're told to ignore it. Why? Because there's a coordinated effort to suppress masculinity and turn men into something they were never meant to be.
Yeah, see, that's the thing I keep... Masculinity seems to be getting vilified, which I don't understand. Masculinity is necessary, like femininity is necessary. And don't give me that toxic masculinity bullshit, because that does not exist. There's no such thing as toxic masculinity or toxic femininity. There's only masculinity and femininity, and there are toxic people. Masculinity in and of itself is not toxic, just like femininity in and of itself is not toxic. It's just part of who we are. There are people who can be toxic, who just happen to be masculine or feminine. I hate the fact that social trends have decided to call masculinity toxic and vilify men as at large. Men at large are not villains, are not toxic or anything. They're just toxic and villainous people. Men as a whole are not. Men are necessary, just like women are necessary. To the human race, without either one, we would go extinct. Without either one, society would fucking collapse. I don't get why people are so hell-bent on vilifying men as a whole. I do not get it. And trying to turn them more feminine. Why?
This decline is no accident. We're constantly exposed to harmful chemicals in our food and everyday products, bombarded with estrogenic chemicals from plastics, junk food, and sedentary lifestyles, which is why testosterone levels have been declining for decades, with a 17% drop among
60-year-old man in 2004 had testosterone levels 17% lower than those of a 60-year-old in 1987. I think, yeah, a lot of it has to probably do with a lot of the foods we consume, considering how processed and just how horrible they are for people nowadays.
Steroids in 2004 compared to 1987. Sperm count and strength in men are also decreasing exponentially, with a 32.5% decrease in mean sperm concentration in the last 50 years.
That's
But here's
horrible.
the good news. There are ways to fight back, and one of the most effective solutions that I found is our sponsor Black Forest's Testosterone with Tonkat Ali. This supplement is packed with two of the most powerful natural testosterone boosters available. Testosterone is a natural anabolic compound that helps increase muscle growth, boost recovery, and support higher testosterone levels. Tonkat Ali, used for centuries, helps raise testosterone, reduce stress, and improve overall vitality. I've been using Black Forest's Testosterone and Tonkat Ali, and I've noticed a huge improvement in my energy, strength, and focus. It's like getting back the edge that modern life was just draining away. Right now, Black Forest is offering a buy two, get one free deal on this limited edition product, and once it's gone, it's gone.
I'll have to
for
check
good.
it out.
I can personally vouch for its effectiveness. It's had a huge difference in my energy levels, strength, sleep, and overall well-being. And by supporting our sponsors, you also support us directly.
I'll probably check that out because I've had a lot of problems with sleeping and my energy levels. So if there's something out there that can help me out and, you know, get me more motivated and more full of energy, then I'll probably check it out. See if it's worth it.
So hurry and take advantage of this amazing 48-hour promo and support me alongside this amazing brand using the link in the description below. The cost of having a job also plays a part in stripping them of their dignity. Transport costs to their job, depending on the amount, could take a huge chunk of their salary, so that at the end of the day, they can only pay for rent or food and not both. A government grant could replace their salaries, and they earn more or less the same amount.
What's also helping to pay the bills is, as I said, the U.S. government, in particular, our disability programs for people who are unable to work. Those programs seem to have morphed away from their original humane intention and now seem to provide an alternative income source to regular employment for several millions, for millions and millions of these guys.
I think there are plenty of people who take advantage of this program who don't actually really need it because they have enough means to actually get a job and be able to work and make an income enough to afford the things they need. And they think that, you know, they could take advantage of this and get extra income so they don't really have to work all that much. Whereas there are people out there that are part of this program who can't really work because they are physically or mentally unable to, that actually need this so they have a supplemental income to actually afford stuff. And it's really horrible that we have people in this sort of program that are taking advantage of this, making, you know, like a mockery of the people who are actually in it, who actually need it.
If a job doesn't support your basic needs of a home, food, and transport, it wears thin in justifying the effort for this job, especially if you're not getting any experience. And in most cases, if you go into the gig economy, absolutely no security either. all for minimum wage. There's even a new term called quietly quitting, where you do the bare minimum of your job.
Oh God, quiet quitting. It's so fucking stupid. What is quiet quitting? Quiet quitting refers to doing the bare minimum required at a job, putting in no extra time, effort, or enthusiasm beyond what's absolutely necessary. While the worker doesn't technically leave their position and still collects a salary, this disengagement can lead to a point where they become nearly ineffective, risking getting fired, or eventually they may choose to quit altogether. Now, there is nothing with quiet quitting. All the jobs that complain about quiet quitting are the ones that are basically taking advantage of the workers themselves. Normally what you would do is you would have a job, you would do a little bit extra than what you were hired on for in hopes that you would either get a good raise, you get noticed, and possibly, get a better position in the company, which comes with a raise and all this sort of stuff. That's why a lot of these people would, put in extra time, extra effort, extra enthusiasm. But nowadays, these companies don't seem to want to do that anymore. They want to get more out of the worker they hired with no regards to giving them a better position or better pay. They just want to have them do more while paying them the same or paying them less. So a lot of these workers have seen this happening, so they would only do what they were hired on to do. They would do no more, no less. They would not put in any overtime, any more effort than they are hired to do, or any enthusiasm beyond what they actually do. And a lot of these companies don't like that. They see that as a problem, which in reality it isn't. They're doing what you hired them to do. Now, if you want them to do more, pay them more. Because you can't expect somebody to do a job and do extra time, effort, and enthusiasm, but not pay them more. You can't expect that. That's unreasonable and just makes no logical sense. I mean, at my job, I'm getting paid, about a little over $25 an hour. So about every 2 weeks, I get after tax, a little over $1,500 every 2 weeks. So about $3,000 a month. I don't really mind if people know, but and I'm slowly learning everything in the area that I'm working, because I know for a fact that I'm going to end up getting a raise. Because my boss wants me to do more, because he knows at some point one of the people that I'm working with is going to retire probably the next few years. And the other person is probably going to be there for 10, 20 years more. And then I'll be the only person there. So I'll be like in charge or whatever. So I do a little bit extra because I know I'm going to get recognized for it, and I know I'm going to get something for it. Now, these people who do quiet quitting know they're not going to get anything for it, and know they're not going to get any more pay for it. So they figured, why do more? So they're well within their right to do this, and jobs don't like that.
To the point that you're almost rendered useless and you get fired or simply quit. The fact that this term even exists shows that attention is desperately needed to solve this problem. And while this is happening, it's becoming more and more common for
young men embrace gender equality, but they still don't vacuum. God. All right, here's the thing. Here's the reality of the situation. True gender equality will never exist. Because men and women, yes, there are only two genders, whether you like it or not, that's just how reality is. Men and women will never be the same. They will never truly be equal because we are different. We are built different. We are wired differently. That is just how it is. There is nothing wrong with that. Now, there are some things we can do gender equality on, and we can reach that true equality for some things. Now, for absolutely everything, that'll never happen because men and women are just too different. No matter what we do, we will never be truly equal, which is fine. Now, a lot of the woke people out there, the Karens and whatnot, won't like that I say that, but that's just how reality works. That's just how we are built and how we are wired. Hate me all you want. That's just how evolution has happened, and that's just how biology works. So, sorry to say, but true gender equality will never happen.
For both partners in a household to be living the same life, or even with most males' partners actually being the breadwinner.
American women are increasingly the breadwinner, but many are still in charge of childcare, cooking, and cleaning. Now, here's the thing. If the wife, girlfriend, fiance, or whatever is the breadwinner, and the male, or, boyfriend, fiance, or husband, whichever one you are, is the stay-at-home person, they should be the one that is taking care of the kids, the cooking, and the cleaning, because that is the least he can do to help out with the woman who is bringing in the money. That is only fair. Now, if both are working and both are bringing in equal amounts of money to pay for everything, then they should come together and discuss who does what, and they should share equal responsibility for the house and the children, if they have children. That is only fair. Now, if the man is the one who is the breadwinner bringing in all the money, and the woman is the one that is staying home and not bringing any money, then the least she could do is take care of the kids and take care of the house. That is only fair. Out of those three scenarios, that's how things should work. Now, in reality, that's how it should work. But, not all houses are like that, because not everyone thinks that way, sadly. But that's how logically it should work.
And whilst this isn't necessarily a problem at all, it is leading to some weird modern problems in the household. Men with families are actually switching their roles with their wives, except they're not actually doing what their wives would do if they were to stay at home.
When you look at what I guess in Britain is called NEET, N-E-E-T, do you say that also?
I think that's originally coined in Japan, a NEET. For those who don't know, a NEET is basically somebody who just stays home, does nothing, is always on the computer, and just doesn't.
So in Australia, neither employed nor in education or training. When you look at that huge group of well over 6 million prime age men, the story they're telling about their lives is really pretty devastating. It's pretty distressing.
Honestly, I could say that if I ever won the Powerball or the Mega, I probably would be a NEET. The only time I'd probably ever go out of my house is if I had to go to the store, family functions, or go to the gym. Because I need to start losing weight and get healthy. But other than that, yeah, I'd probably be a NEET.
Basically don't do civil society. There's almost no worship, almost no volunteering, almost no charitable work. They've got a lot of time on their hands, but they report doing strangely little help around the home or help with other people at home.
Because of the situation, some men may feel a sense of worthlessness and resentment. Some men might take an hour to clean up the house and fetch the kids, but the rest of the day they sleep or play games. In some cases, the wives work and then come home to finish the chores that
Here's the thing. If the person who is the stay-at-home parent or the stay-at-home person, if they've done all the cleaning, if they've done all the chores, if they've done all the laundry, if they take care of the kid, if they've taken care of the kids, if they have kids, if everything is taken care of and you come home finding them, doing some sort of leisure thing, video games, reading, whatever, and you see everything that is taken care of, and you still get upset with them for doing something leisurely, you're the piece of shit. I'm sorry to say, but you are. You're the piece of shit. Now, if you come home, the person who's the breadwinner, and see that not everything is done and taken care of, and the kids aren't taken care of, and you see them doing some sort of leisure activity, then yeah, they're the piece of shit. And you have every right to be upset with them. That's just how things are. everyone has the right to have a hobby or a leisure activity after everything is done. You can't get upset with somebody because they're doing something they like and everything is done. You have no right to be upset at that point. Now, like I said, if not everything is done, you have every right to be upset at that point if they're doing their hobby or leisure activity and not everything's done. Then yeah, be upset, yell at them, get them to do their work. They're being a lazy bum. They're mooching off of you, basically.
Husbands were meant to do but didn't. And whilst this might cause huge marriage problems, it still feels better off to the husbands. If asked what they do for a living, saying they're on a break or working on a project beats the humiliation of saying they work at McDonald's with a useless degree on their back. Men without families have nothing to lose, so they stop working because no woman would even want them anyway. They can't afford to date, they can't afford a family, and since their own families are supportive, it somehow justifies them giving up and staying at home, rather than facing these societal problems head on, with prices rising, getting hired becoming harder and harder by the day, and inequality becoming rampant within society. Most men are just deciding to give up, because instead of facing the hardships of having a job, it just seems so much easier to escape, whether it be terminally being online, playing video games all day, or hiding behind doing chores at home to show they still have a purpose and are doing their best. The point being that for many men in 2024, if they're gonna be disrespected and feel worthless, they may as well choose the easy way out than a battle. If respect had a currency on how it would affect your life directly, you would see a different picture. A man with a job with high pressure, long hours, and doing something that makes him feel degraded would be worth say $100, but staying at home playing games and escaping, all while being with the people he loves, is probably worth $200 because of how it affects him. This explains why more and more men are deciding to drop out of society rather than face it head on, as it just seems to be the easier path.
A lot of men seem to drop out of society is because society seems to vilify men and see us as worthless. So why should we keep on trying when society as a whole seems to just think that men are just horrible people and worthless to society? So yeah, of course a lot of men are dropping out. It's like, what's the point of staying in then?
If it's a choice between two paths, one that offers little satisfaction while the other provides comfort, it's easy to see why men are going this route. But the thing is, this is a terrible mistake. And this is creating problems that we've never seen before. If there is no emphasis or any facilitation of the need to aspire to something greater and the game seems rigged to most who are playing it, it's hardly a surprise record numbers of men are dropping out and giving up on the game entirely. The problem is that there's a huge group of men, roughly about 7 million in America between the ages of 25 and 50.
A large number of American men of prime working age between 25 and 54 years old are not working or even looking for work, resulting in a major hole in the American economy. In 1953, 98% of men in the age range had a job or were looking for one. That number has fallen ever since. Today, 7.2 million men have essentially dropped out of the workforce. Well, yeah, because economically and financially, what's the point of working? We can't afford anything. And we're what's the word? We're expected to be able to pay for everything. I mean, absolutely everything. But we can't afford anything. So what's the point of working if we can't afford anything? So that's just a lot of people don't seem to want to look for work or just want to quit because they don't see a light at the end of the tunnel. Everything's becoming more and more financially out of reach. So they don't really see the point in working because they can't attain it because it keeps getting further and further out of their hands.
55 who are not working and are actively not looking for work. Now, COVID certainly had a hand in accelerating these figures. One question posed to these dropouts was how many of these men were on pain medication, and almost half of these men admitted to taking pain medication daily. And aside from those who desperately need it, these figures could indicate that men are aimlessly numbing themselves to their new reality. And this is great for society as people don't have to deal with this huge problem. And what's even more shocking is that 40% of these men do have some kind of degree.
What sort of men are in this group? Demographically, education, family structure, ethnicity, who makes up this group?
Surprisingly large, representation of guys with college or even college degrees. 40% of this group has at least some college, and as I recall, about a fifth or a sixth are college grads.
The decision to be in this state is closely related to changing times. We've already discussed the effects of brain rot in another upload, which disabled problem solving in Generation Z and has already presented problems in finding jobs. They are quick to quit at the first difficult task and move on to find something else, but what happens when options run dry and they find themselves simply stuck in limbo? Giving up seems to be the next step, and accepting that is easy when they're discouraged by the situation. Working off of surveys, the data compiled indicates that these men are not only not working, but they're cutting themselves off from their communities, or there's no incentivization for them to even have any community in the first place. They're hiding out because going out would mean meeting new people who might oppose their lifestyles. It makes it uncomfortable. Why leave when you can just aimlessly watch brain rot content and numb yourself with weed or pain medication and stay inside, in the warm comfort of home? And any sexual needs you have can be satisfied with pixels on a screen. This lifestyle is increasingly becoming more and more.
The male loneliness epidemic and how it affects fathers. This man's experience shows how susceptible men are to severe loneliness. All I do in my mid-40s is work and parent. I'm lonely. And the thing is, society as a whole doesn't give a shit. They don't care one bit. I don't understand. Like, you do realize society as a whole, the infrastructure, everything would fucking collapse if all men would just disappear. We feel like that society as a whole puts any sort of male problem in the back of their mind, and they just don't care one bit. So, yeah, that's just how a lot of men feel.
Normal for men in the West. But what's important to note is that men don't want to be this way. It's a horrible lifestyle, it's depressing, it's atomizing. What this really is just a coping mechanism or a form of self-defense against a society that's becoming increasingly hostile to these men. Up until recently, the problem has been invisible. These figures weren't shown in any statistics or surveys because they slipped through the cracks until very recently. So why did they slip through the cracks? Well, it's easy to see. They simply don't fit the victim criteria. Some have degrees, they're in the prime of.
To overcome disadvantage, men are often expected to just shape up by themselves. Yeah, we're basically told to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, figure it out on our own, because no one else will care. For a group that can be focused to a fault on addressing microaggression, it's surprisingly acceptable for those on the left to victim blame men who are struggling themselves. So we just let them off the hook? Maybe we should give them electroshock therapy for their hysteria. A progressive female friend of mine joked when I told her about this essay. Yeah. See, that's a horrible mentality to have.
Of their lives, and it was their choice to quit. It's easily overlooked and only comes to light as the numbers rise. Nicholas Upstart wrote a book called Men Without Work and has since exposed and addressed the problems in his book. He says he is trained to look for hidden in plain sight problems, which is how he stumbled upon this issue. You see, these men are not causing trouble, at least for now, and they don't seem to be drawing any attention to themselves. On the contrary, they keep to themselves. So surveys and statistics just don't include them at all. They don't even register on the scale, and people in society think this is a joke issue. And it's also reasonable to conclude that some of these men.
Yeah, it's horrible. But they see these headlines that come up saying men are lonely, loneliness epidemic for men. They see it as nothing but a giant fucking joke. Like, why should we be serious about this? Why should we care about men being lonely? It's so horrible.
Men may work, but in the underground economy. Work like formal cash jobs, or even shady legal ways of making money. But of course, this is just a minor portion of these men. We need to address the problem head on. How is the situation getting this bad? These men have completely lost their purpose in life. All of their duty, their hopes, their responsibilities, their own dignity and value. It's being completely decimated at the moment. And we're seeing this with the form of radicalization online, growing hatred and division, and a general apathy towards society as a whole. And the longer this is ignored, the harder it's going to be addressed down the line. More men today than ever feel disconnected, disillusioned, and left behind by a world that seems increasingly indifferent to their struggles. While GDP numbers and employment stats may sound like an easy, good solution on paper, especially to government bureaucracies, it will never really fix the reality of the situation for normal people. The real challenge we face today in the West is to find purpose and meaning again to have any reason to even want to participate and achieve greatness in society. We should focus on creating environments where people can thrive, where beauty, philosophy, and higher noble pursuits are actively encouraged by the cities and countries that we inhabit, which would give millions of men a reason to care again.
Yeah, we need more people to care. We need men to actually care again, but nobody's gonna really care about if men care or not. So, anyways, that was men are slowly giving up and nobody cares. I would like to know all of your thoughts on this. So comment down below, and I would love to read what your opinions are. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Make sure to go check me out over on Twitch. I stream over there about 5 to 6 days a week at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. So make sure to go give me a follow on there. Don't really know what else. Oh, I don't really know what else to say. I'm not really good at this outro stuff. Anyways, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you all in the next video. Good night. I'm horrible at this. See you in the next video, everyone. Good night, my fellow nerds.